Born into a world that saw color before character, it would seem that the odds were already stacked against him. Born into a world that told him he couldn't go to law school and become a lawyer, what were his chances of success? Born into a world that could never fathom to see an African American justice on the Supreme Court, it would seem that his destiny was already written into the stars. But nevertheless, Thurgood Marshall's accomplishments have opened the doors of opportunity for other African Americans to prosper and prevail. He is fondly remembered for his bravery throughout his diligent work in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP. As chief counsel, he won the landmark case of Brown versus the Board of Education. As the first African American Supreme Court justice, his perseverance of justice helped him mend the scars of the Jim Crow era through the criminal justice system. To fully paint the picture of Thurgood Marshall's accomplishments, we must first begin to look at his time as legal counsel for the NAACP. At the young age of 28, Marshall began to demonstrate his bravery through his work as chief counsel of the NAACP. In this position, he argued and won a plethora of cases that struck down legal racism. These cases played a significant role in the civil rights movement. One of Marshall's first victories before the Supreme Court gave freedom to men who had been chained and railroaded for crimes that they did not commit. What was their crime, you may ask? Being black in America. In Chambers v. Florida, Marshall successfully argued to return liberty to 4 black men who had been coerced to admit to a crime that they again did not commit. Marshall was known to question the system that had once objectified him and reduced him down to the color of his skin. And for this, his brave words became the deadliest weapon against the systematically racist America that he had been born into. Perhaps one of Marshall's greatest career achievements was his victory as a civil rights lawyer in the landmark case of Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. This ruling made it unconstitutional for laws establishing racial segregation in schools to exist, something that had been rotting the moral fabric of our country. Marshall challenged the legal foundation of racial segregation via this case, due to the fact that it reversed separate but equal doctrine that had been established in Plessy versus Ferguson. Therefore, this decision paved the road for Jim Crow and de-jure segregation to unravel within the next few decades, while simultaneously putting Marshall on a pedestal for his historical accomplishments. Persevering through discrimination and doubt throughout his career, Marshall became America's first black Supreme Court justice in 1967. As a Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall was a titan for upholding protection of individual rights and oftentimes sided liberally on controversial social issues. In the 1937 landmark Roe v. Wade case, Marshall sided in favor of the right to women having abortions. In the 1972 case of Furham v. Georgia, Marshall articulated his opinion that the death penalty was unconstitutional under all circumstances. In the latter part of Marshall's career as justice, he wrote strongly worded dissents about the reinstatement of the death penalty and the limited affirmative action measures being taken place. His strategy of attacking racial injustice through a legal lens isn't as highly popularized as MLK's rhetoric, but should be weighed the same in the eyes of history. All in all, despite the fact that the world saw his color before his character, Thurgood Marshall became one of the most influential lawyers in the 20th century. With a combination of his bravery and perseverance, he was able to attack racial inequality through the optics of the justice system. Thurgood Marshall's efforts in reforming a systematically racist America didn't take form in rhetoric nor protests, but rather through the criminal justice system. He set the stage for civil rights activists to flourish, and the remnants of his legal proceedings will continue to live on for centuries. Marshall's obituary reads, "We make movies about Malcolm X, we get a holiday to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but every day we live with the legacy of Thurgood Marshall." Thank you.